Welcome to Fightline, brought to you in conjunction with Buy My Fight and Westbound Logistics Services. My name is Ben Doughty, and on the third week of lockdown, I'm forced to concede that there isn't an awful amount in the way of boxing stories currently doing the rounds. It's something that inevitably we all expected, and such stories that have come to light have been of a rather negative nature for the most part. We had the Billy Joe Saunders gate, which I gave my feelings on last episode. A couple of days on the heels of that little scandal came the news that Scott Fitzgerald had also had his licence suspended by the British Boxing Board of Control, relating, as it did, to an arrest for an alleged domestic disturbance. It's something that obviously the case with Billy Joe was a little bit more cut and dried, and we will have to see how that whole situation pans out in due course, along with the fact we will also have to see when big time boxing will return to this world. With Scott, inevitably it's a bit more of a grey area. What does seem to be the case, and we have known it historically, that boxers often don't do well without boxing in their primes, and even and also in retirement. When they're not in the gym, when they're not fighting, and they don't have things, competitive things to look forward to on the horizon, it's been well known for fighters sometimes to find themselves in different levels of grief and dysfunction, which I suppose it causes us to believe. Let me get the backdrop back. This is something I don't think you want to see the Millennium Wheel or whatever the hell that is. Forgive the more rough and ready nature of things at the minute. We are in lockdown. I don't have a studio, in quarantine, and I'm pressing on because I want to try and bring you coverage and create boxing debate for your delectation. So yeah, we always talk about boxing creates focus, discipline and control, and its character building, but what I think we might be forced to acknowledge is it only creates those things in the context of it being pursued. When it is removed from a fighter due to inactivity or permanent retirement, we've seen that some of these qualities that have been gained in the discipline of the sweet science are sometimes lost and can't be applied to the real world. I guess that's another debate. The other story I became aware of this week was that the WBC have apparently reinstated Devin Haney as their WBC lightweight champion, which prompted one poster on Twitter to remark that he became champion essentially by email. He lost it by email because due to injury he was unable to meet his mandatory obligations, which had initially created the situation that Javier Fortuna and Luke Campbell were due to contest that vacant WBC lightweight championship. I believe it was this coming Friday on April 17th, correct me if I'm wrong. And then he's been reinstated on the grounds which I actually think are quite reasonable in the midst of a ridiculous situation to begin with world boxing in the 21st century. I understand Haney's logic that if those two are not able to contest he was champion in recess, if they're not able to contest what is either the interim fight or the regular title fight to determine his temporary successor, then why should he be penalised in that way, given that he will be able to defend his title by the time there is any professional boxing going on globally? For what it's worth, I would uphold, within the very silly remit that we have with the sanctioning bodies and the multiple title recognition within those same sanctioning bodies, I would uphold Devin Haney's logic for what it's worth, that you may as well give it back to him until the dust settles. Quite what happened to Vasyl Lomachenko, who I thought was the WBC lightweight champion. I certainly know that Luke Campbell lost to him in that memorable occasion last year at the O2 in pursuit of this WBC lightweight title. I'm not sure if you check on Google at the minute or Wikipedia or anything like that, looking for current list of world boxing champions, something I have frequent occasions to do just to try and stay abreast of the madness, you will see that Vasyl Lomachenko is not listed at all, so I'm not really sure what happened to him. I think we know he's the best lightweight in the world. I think we were all very much looking forward to the highly attractive matchup between himself and Teofimo Lopez. And I think the sweepstakes at this point is going to be, when will big time boxing return? Eddie Hearn has said that he's still hopeful that Anthony Joshua and Pulev could go ahead in July, perhaps. I would be extremely sceptical about that at this particular juncture, and for that reason we have to get sentimental and nostalgic, namely I'd like to take you back to February the 20th, 1976, Roberto Clemente Coliseum, San Juan, Puerto Rico, for Muhammad Ali's rather undemanding world heavyweight title defence against the so-called Lion of Flanders, Belgian heavyweight also-ran contender Jean-Pierre Koopmans. I recently dug out this fight in a moment of idleness, and I think we are getting plenty presented to us for the most part these days, unless you happen to be a key worker. I was initially intrigued by the suggestion of a new addition to my Facebook page, a fella by the name of Carl Hegman, who actually saw Ali fight 4 times in Houston at the Astrodome on those separate occasions. And he said that Koopman was the worst tomato can in the history of boxing ever to get a shot at the richest prize in sport. And I was particularly intrigued by his claim that Koopman was drinking champagne in the dressing room pre-fight. He was that much a sacrificial lamb on a hide into nothing. Presumably he just thought, fuck it, let's live in style and go into the ring half sozzled. So I googled Jean-Pierre Koopman champagne because I'd never heard this story, and interestingly enough I realised I'd never actually seen this Ali fight. I tend to think I've seen every Ali fight, but sometimes you realise there's one you've missed, you didn't see at the time, when I was a kid, and I haven't got around to re-investigating, and I wasn't aware of the champagne story. When you Google the words Jean-Pierre Koopman and champagne, what you get is the story that he denied rumours that he drank champagne and was drunk before the fight started, but he did admit supposedly to drinking champagne in the corner to calm his nerves. I think what this shows you is how good Ali still was in 1976, at a point when he wasn't in the best of shape against a challenger he hadn't taken incredibly seriously. To be fair, Koopman didn't have fantastic credentials. The only recordable names on his record at the time were Charlie the Devil Green and Rudy Lubbers, and he'd lost to Lubbers. But Ali, there was one thing he did better than anybody else, in my humble opinion, and it was the counter lead right hand. He seemed to almost look like he pulled away and threw that right hand, but there were times when he would just slip and get his head inside and put it over the opponent's jab. He was just an expert at waiting for a jab and scoring with that still incredibly quick right hand over the top of it. Let's have a look at 3 examples on the spin in the opening round.
On Koopman already. A minute to go in round 1. Ali's round so far, no question about that.
Watch the right hand, though. It comes right across, and good fighters say you don't even see that right hand right there. There it is, feet. Oh, left, right, a lead right hand landed.
It's been well documented that Ali didn't dance around as much in his 70s incarnation, particularly not as his career started to wind down. And because of that, there seemed to be a certain amount of increased magic when the greatest did choose to get on his toes. It was like a party piece for the crowd, whether it was necessary from the point of view of boxing acumen and strategy or not. It was something that he would exceed to do sometimes, and to show that he could still float like he was moving around on a film of air. We'll take a look.
Couple of body blows as Ali moved back. Now he's dancing a little bit, up on the toes for the first time. There's the jab. Now you're going to see something.
Ali had indicated to us 2 minutes before the fight that this was the round that he expected to be all over. Number 5. So far, he's just dancing.
Ali at 226. But carrying it pretty well right now. Oh, he can get on his toes. And a great set of wheels on this champion. Now you see, now you don't. Koopman's trying to cut down the ring, and he's finding that a little bit of a problem, too. Now he's got it. No, now he doesn't. Shuffle just a little bit. 2 good jabs out of it. Just as you set to attack what he's doing at that moment, it changes, and suddenly he puts that jab on you like a rock. 8-ounce gloves.
He looks in excellent shape.
Interesting to see that as Ali backs up, he lands like a 4 or 5 punch combination that Koopman largely seems to block. It seems to be the uppercut he gets hit on the inside.
Catching us, I think.
Oh, combination. 5 in a row. Left and right's too fast.
Koopman is down.
Koopman is down. Holding that left eye. He's trying to get up.
Gotta take 8.
He's in good condition. That's all.
last word to the man himself. My name's Ben Doughty. I hope you've enjoyed episode 16 of Fightline. In the meantime, be lucky and keep punching.
But the fight itself was a tough fight. May not look like it, but the man hit hard.
Was it really a tough fight?
Yes, he was awkward. He was awkward. He could take a lot of punches.
He carried that left hand so low, I thought you were going to, you laid the right hand on him almost at will, and
Yes.
you jabbed him right out of his mind.
Yes, he could take a lot of punches. And, I hit him with a hard punch. It dazed him, but it didn't knock him out. His eye was cut. I hope he's not cut, seriously. But I enjoyed the fight, and everything was nice.